I get people out here, work on the range, they look at the website. Now, a lot of people can't get access to me and they'll come to you. When you're looking at what we're talking about from a golf swing perspective, what would you say is the biggest thing people misunderstand or that gets in their way of doing what we're doing?
I would say the biggest thing I see is that people misinterpret that you want them to be swinging just arms. And so you wind up with guys swinging the golf club back here, and then their arms are coming down in here and nothing's moving. And I know Mike well enough to know that that's not what he wants. He wants to make this an athletic event. He wants the golf swing to be as athletic as possible. But I see a lot of people with their arms back in here and they wind up running the club into the golf ball, and I've seen multiple times where I filmed somebody and at impact they actually have their shoulders shut and their hips still shut. And I'm just thinking, wow. How'd you come up with that one? You want me to do that in a swing?
Damn. I don't think he can do that.
That's like totally against my nature. That's backwards.
I can do it.
Okay, so here we go. So I'm gonna hit it with my...
Yeah.
So we get that look. And I see a lot of head staying down and, it's just like, hold on there. I know for a fact that's not what Mike's teaching. Okay, so I see this a lot too. Head still down. All these are offsetting forces, so they have to be offset by something. So the reason that we're tipping the club out is to offset the fact that if we rotated, then the club would want to get over here. So we're tipping the club out to offset that.
I get a lot of people that come up to me, or I get emails where they say, well, you want people to make a swing and hit the ball and rotate the club and tip the club out and go, and you want their body to push away. Well, no, you're offsetting a circular force.
Yes.
So I've never wanted anybody to just push to do this. If you're constantly pushing away from the club as it's going around you, all they're doing is pushing straight back. It's not a constant push away from the momentum.
Well, and they also wind up, because nothing's moving, if I'm just throwing this down, I'm gonna have to stand up because it's gonna run into the ground like this. So then they start doing this and it's just a complicated mess. So what I teach these people who come to me and they're just throwing the club with only hands and no rotation, I'll just take away the hands and arms for a minute and I'll have them just swing the club back to where their left arm is parallel to the ground and then learn how to pivot their body into the golf ball and do something like that. And so they can hit a little shot and keep their right arm bent and learn how to rotate. Because once they learn how to do that, then what they're doing to offset, they actually have something to offset.
Yeah.
And then it ties it all together. I've had pretty great success with that once I've taught somebody how to pivot. Now sometimes that becomes very difficult because most people I find in the game, or most amateurs who are struggling, they swing the club back here and they naturally want to throw it real early.
Yeah.
Or throw their shoulders this way,
right.
A combination of the two. So when I teach them how to do this, now they've got something that they can
push against. They start to feel how
they start to feel how the body pivots and how to relate it to a golf swing.
The other thing you said there that's really important, and I found it's a big misconception when we start talking about work the club out in front of you, or Jack talked about release the club early, or Joe said stand the club up. People for some reason think that means straighten your right arm. Well, see, no, when I come down and I'm working the club out, and what you just said, when I run the club into the ball, my right arm is still bent.
Well, yeah.
Your right arm doesn't straighten until after impact.
The only way you can get that right forearm lined up with the shaft is for there to be a little bit of bend. And that's what creates stability. The minute that you run out of right arm, now you've got no stability in the club. So
if I get to the top of my swing and I start down and I actually pivot the club correctly, my right arm, it has nothing to do with my right arm straightening out. See, all I'm doing is this is pivoting like this. My wrists are staying hinged and my right arm's staying bent all the way down into the ball. But somehow when you say tip the club out, people, rather than just rotating their arms like this, they push their right arm and push the club out. And so when I get people saying, well, see, here I'm tipping the club out, I go, no, you're throwing the club out and across you, which is making the ball go clear over there.
Mm-hmm.
So now if I pivot the club out correctly, which is what you did, if all of a sudden I'm up here and my lower body does what it's supposed to and the handle comes down, I pivot the club, that's coming from in here. So my right arm through impact is still bent.
Still bent, so you have something to stabilize the shaft still.
So would you say this, that regardless of what we do in teaching, the golf swing is a blend of arm swing and body rotation?
Yeah, and depending on how you grip it, and the blend changes. It's
and
like
then how you use your hands based on how you grip it has an impact on it. So there isn't any one formula for sure, because some people are going to need more pivot, like you've seen. Some people are going to use less pivot and more arms. It's about getting sequence to work correctly and things to work in sync. So, you know, it's one of those, as teachers, what we have to be willing to do, and even with students, is what you have to be willing to do is once you know what you're trying to do with the club, you have to be willing to experiment a little bit, make some little adjustments, and see which makes sense.
Yeah, so you have to know what formula to give that student. It's not everybody gets the exact same thing. It's, you know,
So it's a blend.
It's always a blend.